Roundtable plenary. So welcome to everyone and those of you who are still coming in, and I think some people will still be coming in. I'm Shelley Cobb, and I co-organized this with Estrella Sendra Fernandez from the Winchester School of Art at the University of Southampton. So just to say the usuals, cameras off except for our speakers, definitely microphones off for everyone, just to help with bandwidth, especially since we're doing some slide sharing. Just so you know, this event is also being recorded, so everyone should be aware of that. There's a notification of that. You can post questions that you think of in the chat if you like to, but there will be time at the end to ask those questions with the raise hand function, and etc. and so forth. So we'll now pass over to Estrella to welcome you all.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for those housekeeping little rules to make this run a little bit more smoothly, since we have people connecting a little bit from all over. I think, Hanan, you're back in the UK now, so that should make things slightly easier. We are very delighted to be here in our second day of this wonderful conference with great practitioners who are generous to share their experiences with us and speak about the conference theme, which is Time and the Body in Film, Television and Screen Studies. They have all been invited precisely because of their engagement with these various issues. So the idea is to start thinking of how all of these different topics are embodied in your own practice as professional practitioners and creative researchers. I'm just going to introduce our wonderful speakers very briefly, since you have access to the full biography in the website. So I'll start in alphabetical order. Professor Lindiwe Dovey, who is a professor of film and screen studies at SOAS University of London, where she's also the principal investigator of the 5-year ERC-funded project Screen Worlds, Decolonising Film and Screen Studies. And she's also a filmmaker, as well as a creative researcher and film festival curator. So she'll be talking to us about all of that experience. We also have with us Leena Manimekalai, who is a Tamil poet and award-winning independent filmmaker whose films and writers are deeply driven by social justice, and we are delighted to have her here with us. We also have with us Hanan Razek, who is an award-winning Egyptian-British correspondent at BBC Arabic, also award-winning journalist, and delighted to have you with us because 10 years ago you won an award for your documentary, The Women of Tahrir Square, and you were telling me of the record, which I think will become on record today, that you recently talked to these women 10 years afterwards, after this experience. So it will be great to have an insight on that timely experience. And there we have with us as well Alys Scott Hawkins, drawing from observation to explore the world and document what she sees, using animation to tell stories about lived experience, often about bodies from a feminist perspective. So it is great to have you all with us. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation.
Sorry, there was going to be someone who was going to forget to unmute themselves. So thank you all for being here. It's a real pleasure. And I know everyone in the audience is looking forward to hearing you speak. So we asked the practitioners here to tell us about their professional practice and to do that however they want, but with some attention to the questions and themes of the conference. And the first question we asked was, what does it feel like to embody the role of film, television, screen, media, maker or director, and in your experiences of that? So Leena, I think we're gonna have you go first, if that's all right.
Great. Good evening, everyone. In India, it is dinner time. It is 8:30, and I extend my thanks to British Academy of Film and Television Studies, University of Southampton, and the amazing team who have put up this conference very successfully. Thanks for inviting me, and I'm really happy to be there with my amazing panel. Yes, And let me start my presentation. I think I have a little presentation to show you with clips of, my new films, one in work in progress and one a finished feature. Let me share the screen now. I hope you can see the screen now.
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Yes. Like my film practice started like 15 years ago. And I started as a video activist. I was making a lot of political activist documentaries. And slowly I shifted to narrative documentaries and experimental poem work and, and then fiction, cinema verite and pure fiction. So I've tried almost all genres of films. But right through the journey, my focus was social justice. I was working with communities. It was all participatory work, documentaries, experimental or fiction. I've been continuously doing people participatory work. And I believe that there are stories that nobody will get to know if we don't film them. Let me show you a small clip from my film, which is in progress. I'm currently editing this film. This is called Rape Nation, and it is a work in progress clip. I've been shooting this since 2015, and I've been tracing the legal struggles of 5 rape survivors across the subcontinent. All the 5 characters are heroes, and they have triumphed their violent past. And on top of it, they are giving back to the community. They are leaders on their own. Let me just show you a very short clip.
हम इधर से आए खेतों में होकर फिर रास्ते पे चढ़े उसके बाद हमारे पे हमला
प्रोग्रामा साइंस जितना निर्दोष राम भक्तों ने रेलवे ना डब्बा सળગાવી દીધા ત્યાર પછી આપણા ગામમાં આપણે કોઈની દુકાન બાળી હતી ભાઈ
दूसरे जाति के लोग मेरे परिवार वाले को मार रहे थे मुसलमानों को मारे जाते करके फिर मारने लगे सबको मार डाला
આપણે કોઈનું માથું વાળ્યું હતું આપણે કોઈ બેન બેટીની ઇજ્જત લીધી હતી
मेरे को नर्स हुआ मेरी बेटी को भी मार डाला पूरे परिवार अभी हम कहाँ निकले पाए वही लगता है छत्तीसगढ़ पहुंच गए हो गए फिर हम किधर नहीं आया वही किया जो मेरे साथ था होना था उसने मेरे इतना ही दिया नंगा किया करंट छोड़ दिया गिट्टी पत्थर डाले मेरे साथ गलत करने की कोशिश किया सब तरह से मतलब गलत करना चाहिए लोग पूरे कोई कसर नहीं छोड़े मुझे जो उनको करना चाहिए था तो सीधा सीधा बोला ना कि तुम कहाँ जाओगे
Many of these cases in the conflict areas, the state would even connect the victim with terrorism. You can try and make a formal complaint against a policeman or a person of the armed forces, security forces. It will never be registered. So it's never investigated. So the officer is never prosecuted. And these are the ingredients of impunity.
कोई चीज भी नहीं है ना भाई कोई चीज को दे अरे मदद से मनोरमा को थला सारा काम दे कोई से को मतलब काटी अदुना आई कोई छुट्टी तुंगना आनी में नमंगा कोई को मोइना लागे में ना कोई को रेक तौरो ना कोई को हानो ना कोई सादों जिल्लावर का तारो मिया mamanga iswota nga si koy di mon ni taba sila iswota koy di apalo ko yung kami po na di Stella Dragon we are all Manormat mother we are all Manipurian ladies you know understand
Yeah, that was a short clip, and it was giving you the story of 3 survivors, one from Manipur and one from Gujarat and one from the Bastar region, which is Chhattisgarh. The other 2 characters, I'm still editing those stories, and this is going to be a feature-length work, and then I'm hopefully completing it by the end of this year. So to have a small introduction on my film practice, I'm a self-taught filmmaker, and I picked up filmmaking from the streets because I come from the engineering background. So I was more a political student activist, and then I became a political activist, working with women movements, student movements, and youth movements. So when I started my practice, it was digital revolution. So cheap cameras, microphones, and affordable editing softwares. So it is this technology, the digital technology, that enabled my filmmaking practice, because you don't need that much muscle power and money power to actually make films. So that's where I started in 2003, 2004. That was around the time I started making films. And it was more political pamphlets, my earlier films, almost like 3 to 4 films until I did European Union Fellowship with BBC and the European Union. Since till then, I was doing activist documentaries, and then I slowly moved on into narrative documentaries. But through this process of making films as tool of political activism, I understood how films and screenings can further the dialogues and create powerful discourses. I thoroughly enjoyed the process. I was traveling all the time across the villages, carrying this DVD player and mobile projector, and we were even screening the films on the lawns, in the public places, in the schools, in the farms. And that's how, screening was also the process of filmmaking. It was just not the making. The dissemination was also on my responsibility. So that really made me feel this whole practice as an open university, where I learned about my society, my people, and how it functions, and what are all the layers, in the space I was born and brought up. And I learned so much while filming communities and doing participatory work, because we just don't study about them in our textbooks, in our college degree or school, lessons. So only through filmmaking, I actually got to know, my society. So traveling, researching, knowing, filming, and screening, that became my way of life. For almost 10, 12 years, I've traveled across India, outside for festivals, but across India for political work. It's like you go screen, talk to the community, create a dialogue, and then again move on to next film, and you get the subjects from the communities whom you meet. And this is how my whole journey was happening. And I discovered narrative documentaries and then experimental film poems, because I write poetry. I've published poetry, but I write in Tamil. A few of them are translated, but still poetry. I wasn't exploring poetry much in the cinema. In my practice of films, then I did try to do some experimental work, It is poetry cinema. And my first feature film was Cinema Verite, where I had people acting, like the real people, the refugees and fishermen, acting as actors, and they were telling their own stories. And then fiction storytelling, which is my current work, which is actually a fairy tale about the slave community in the remote south of India. And that's how I evolved as a storyteller, with a repertoire of 15 documentaries across genres and lengths, and 2 fiction features. So to expand about my practice, I insert work as an original fact in the process of liberation, place it first at the service of life itself, ahead of art, dissolve aesthetics in the presence of society, and only in this way I believe I can reiterate my commitment to decolonization. For me, the people come first, the community come first. Me or my work of art, they take a back seat. When I work with them, I'm completely loyal to the truth the community share with me. And that's what I share with the rest of the world. So that's the core of my art practice. It also means exercising demons like censorship, both institutional and non-institutional, from conception to making to outreach, and staying committed to winning over it in every step. I come from a society, an Indian society, like all of you know, it's a very hegemonical, hierarchical society. Caste is in place, religion is in place, and patriarchy is in full force. And feudalism, they say it's not there, but it is still very much embedded in the culture. So censorship is from all directions. Like, though we have institutional censorship, we do have non-institutional censorship, and there are many factors which, which are out there trying to stop you tell the stories what you want to say. And what does it mean setting up the context of the filmmaker as a female subject who finds herself on the field? As a female filmmaker, almost all my films, gender has been actually the core of the narratives. Almost all my films, I had only women as protagonists, or the trans woman as protagonists. Like all my 15 documentaries, all my fiction films so far, all the protagonists are women. And being a woman, working with women, telling women's stories, it's been a huge process, like as an artist. And what does it mean to take the camera and go to the state restricted areas? Again, most of my films are dealing with conflict, towards trying to head towards the resolution. So it'll be a caste conflict, or a religious conflict, or it can be a conflict in Sri Lanka, where language is a conflict, where Tamils are killed and Tamil genocide is enforced. So I have worked in Sri Lanka also extensively, because I'm very close to the Tamil cause. I have done a feature-length fiction and a documentary, which was also broadcast in Channel 4. So how does it get to the point where the filmmaker stands in front, next to the journalist at the very moment of the incident, without a press pass or a life jacket or institutional security? So when I make independent films, I never had the protection of any institution, because you're independent, you're out there, and you don't have any backup of any, because you want to have an independent expression. So the safety, all those issues, how you have this entire negotiation with the agencies of power, with the nation states. If you're working in a conflict area, like how do you negotiate with people who are in power, the police, the Navy, the army, and the Q branch, the intelligence? Like, you have to handle so many stakeholders when you're at the place where there is conflict. And what kind of artistic practice is the real footage document? what is fact and what is fiction and what is factual fiction, because you're there, you're capturing the image, and you're also trying to tell the story. So how to resist making an image when capturing an image? Definitely, as a filmmaker, as an artist, you have a perception, and when you're capturing, it is just not the image you're capturing. It is also about the image which you're not capturing. It is something within the frame, and it is also about something outside the frame. So how to resist freezing the moment into a symbol? Or is an image created in dangerous conditions more valuable than the archival material? Is better knowledge produced at considerable risk, or how to deal with the content that censorship agencies resist? Because most of my films have been banned by the regional censor board, and I always go to the tribunal and courts to get it cleared. So, I mean, you have a story, and when it is in controversy, the story is not seen the same. It is seen along with the controversy. And when it is censored, and there is another story layered to the story where it is actually censored. So how it is all building up, and how to intersect artistic expression with ethics. So these are all the questions that ponder me through my artistic practice, and I'm constantly seeking answers for this, or I end up having more questions. So to give you an anecdote, this is an image from my film Sendra. It's in the English title is The Dead Sea. It's about the refugees and fishermen in the border shore, this Indo-Sri Lankan border shore, their lives, and the fishermen and the Lankan Tamil refugees in the border shore. They are the actors. They also participated in the production. Through the workshop, they were also giving inputs to the script, and the entire thing was participatory, and the script was based on their life stories and real life events, and written on the condition that they were willing to perform their own stories. So the fishermen of Dhanushkodi, which is in the tip of the Indian subcontinent, which is very close to Sri Lanka, and you can just reach the Sri Lanka in 15 minutes of boat ride, but it is a conflict area. It is under the naval monitoring. So that is where I made this film. Actually, to look at it, it is an illegal material where you can't make film, but I made this film. It was possible only with the help of the community. And it resulted in life interchanges among fishermen, refugees, and the film community. So the gaze is like three-dimensional, where the film provided a common ground where various struggles and pain could be shared. We had pain as filmmakers. The people had pain as refugees and the fishermen, and we also had the public, the common people of Rameshwaram, act in the film. So, we were all coming together, and we were sharing our pain, and that became the narrative. The film provided a common ground where various struggles and pain could be shared. The community and the film crew learned each other's limitation. It is not just our gaze, it is also their gaze. So, and we're willing to negotiate differences with the sole aim of realizing the film together. So these were all people who have never been in front of the camera. So for them, this is the first time. And being heard and feeling understood built the trust and commitment between the community and artists. The process also provided each of us opportunities to break from set habits and think across the grain of accustomed contexts, because we only have seen fishermen or refugees in newspapers or in some books. But when you actually go live with them, hear their stories, and also make this film together, it is a social experiment. It's an anthropological experiment, and it became like a sampling. So the power relationships were evened down, and some stubborn reflections were relieved. The central tool in the process of the film Sendra is dialogue. So as a film practitioner, I realized I am creating dialogues between actors in conflict, between actors and audience, between film crew and community, between community and public, and between film crew and public. So thus I discovered that the film need not be just a distributor of a message to spectators, but a medium that could create a space for discourse within and among the artists, community, and the spectators. The triangle comes like where the community, film crew, and the audience, and encourage them to seek more rights and opportunities together.
Yeah.
Now,
that's all fascinating. I think we can now listen to the next speaker and bring the rest of the examples and experiences when addressing the other questions, because of you've already covered so much and I'm just being aware of time. So could we now move to Professor Lindiwe Dovey and some of the recent filmmaking practice you've been engaging with as part of Screen Worlds? Thank you.
Okay, hi everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Thank you. So thank you so much, Estrella and Shelley, for this wonderful invitation to be part of this panel. Leena, it's been inspiring already to listen to you. And thank you to the conference organizers for this great event. It's really an honor to be here. And I look forward to learning from all my co-panelists, but also from many of you in the audience, because I know we have many practitioners amongst us. So there's a lot of collective experience in this virtual room. What I say today, I'll switch between different hats because my work ranges across film curation, film festival founding and organization, and filmmaking, and these overlap with my film teaching and research as well. And this is because my work is deeply invested in the relationship between theory and practice, and also in feminist critical work, which, as Bell Hooks says, refuses the Cartesian mind-body dualism. Just for a little bit of personal background, I started out studying filmmaking and literature in the US, and at that time wanted to be an independent filmmaker. That was 20 years ago. But then I ended up following my other passion, which was academia. And I'd intended to continue with my filmmaking as part of my academic work. But soon after I started my PhD on African cinema here in the UK, I found myself interpellated by how difficult it was for people to access, especially African-made films here, and also by the overwhelming negative representations in the UK media of Africans and Black people. So much of my practice for the last 2 decades have been in terms of founding film festivals with other people, running film festivals, and in the curatorial realm. But I'm really excited that now through the ERC funding that we have for my Screen Worlds project, that's the European Research Council, that I'm able to bring together my early passion for filmmaking with my passion for academia and curation. And for me, these often overlap in quite complex ways. Just for some broader context then on the Screen Worlds project, you can read more and see more at our website, which is screenworlds.org. This project is really motivated by a desire to contribute to the renewed decolonization movements within academia across disciplines, but specifically the decolonization of our own discipline of film and screen studies, although we'd love to have an impact on the film industry as well. And for us, decolonization means doing the critical collaborative work with many others to move beyond Eurocentrism and geographical bias and explore and celebrate the vital contributions that African filmmakers in particular have made to global film culture as the most marginalized filmmakers in the global screen economy, from a regional perspective. We also have a very strong interest, however, in the work of Asian filmmakers through one of the strands of our project called Global Screen Worlds, which I co-run with Professor Kate Taylor-Jones, who I think is here this evening. I think some of our other team members are also here in the room this evening. So again, we were talking in an earlier panel of how we can't speak on behalf of others. So I hope they might join in to speak about their roles and on the project if they wish to later. Just to say also then, we, in terms of the theme of this panel, we strongly believe that creative, practice-based approaches can help us to decolonize by drawing on the embodied nature of film. So our outputs are including research films and audiovisual essays. I'm sorry I can't show you work in progress, but members of our team are actually in production as I speak. So we have Anulika Agina, who is in Nigeria working on her film right now, and she is Nigerian, and Michael Thomas, who is in Ethiopia, working on his film there in Addis Ababa. I'm starting out on a series of short films about African women filmmakers in collaboration with those women. So like Leena was saying, dialogue and conversation is really important to the way I think about my research work. And we have a new team member as well who just joined us a month ago, Nabunya Levine. I think she may be with us as well. And she is South African and an incredible artistic researcher. And she'll be making films on decolonizing screen worlds for our project. And just to say, she's made films in the past, for example, about Sarki Batman. And also we'll hold the UK premiere of Nabunya's new film, Spillover, at the beginning of next academic year. So please sign up for our newsletter through our website to find out more about that event and also our other free curated events. Just to say then, decolonization also means thinking self-reflexively about how our own bodies, intersectional identities and lived experiences play a significant role in the constitution of our research. So for example, I've recently published a mixed written visual piece in the artistic practice journal PASS, in which I foreground and explore my own embodied story as a white South African, focusing on African film over the past 20 years, and also on the unlearning that I've had to do in that process, things I've learned from my students, I prefer to call class members. So there are two elements here. You know, it's being able to use that hybrid creative form with film clips and photographs embedded within the writing. I really felt this freed me from those protocols of academic writing where we tend to lead with our minds and rationality. And I felt I could lead with my body and my emotions in that piece. And also what that piece allowed me to do was make visible my own whiteness. Because often when we're speaking about race, you know, in the way that we speak about that, it's as though we're only speaking about people of color, and whiteness is left invisible. And I think it's very important that we make visible whiteness and the effects and effect that it has on our work. Just to emphasize again, you know, I don't think we can separate mind from body here. And for me, practice that isn't deeply informed by reflection can be problematic. So again, it's that dialectic between embodiment and rationality that I'm really interested in. Embodied knowledge is always there for us, but if it's left untranslated into shareable forms, then the impact of such knowledge is limited, if not non-existent. Relevant to thinking through this dialectic, which turns on the relationship between self and other, is that within the Screen Worlds project, crucial to our research methodologies are not only self-reflexivity, but conversation and co-authorship with others, very similar to what Leena was just saying. Respecting Mignolo and Walsh's call for decolonization to focus on relationality, and Linda Tuhiwai-Smith's emphasis on the radical compassion needed to advance social justice. So just finally then, you know, decolonization will mean nothing if it's not a collective task with everyone playing their role. And on this closing note, I'm excited to announce that we have just launched a Screen Worlds call for submissions of work, including short films, audiovisual essays, personal essays, podcast interviews, to help us to build up our research and resources on our website, specifically on the topic of decolonizing film. So if you go to our website and look under the submissions category, it's there. I'll also post it in the chat box, the link. And please do consider, I know many of you are already doing work in this area, but it would also be great to hear from new voices. Please join us in trying to bring about a more globally representative and socially just discipline of film and screen studies by reflecting on these things both critically and creatively. So thank you so much for listening to me this evening, and I really look forward to my co-panelists' further papers and presentations, and I look forward to our discussions as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And we continue moving to medium. And in this case, we go towards the experience of Hanan Razek, who herself has done radio and television. So Hanan, would you like to share with us your experience?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me here today. Thank you, Estrella and Shelley, for organizing this. I'm so happy to be here with you and with this very inspiring panel, to be honest. So today I want to share with you the story Estrella mentioned, the women of Tahrir Square, which I was telling her about 10 years ago when we were classmates at SOAS. And surprisingly, she was like the top student of the class. then. So the Women of Tahrir Square is a story we started in 2011. So after the uprising, and as women were like a key part of Tahrir Square, they were at the heart of the protest. They were there alongside men protesting, cheering, being beaten up at the hands of the police, being shot at, rubber bullets. They decided on the 8th of March in 2011, after toppling Mubarak, they decided to take to the square again to celebrate International Women's Day, and to bring about and call for change in women's lives in Egypt. They were shouted at, they were told that this is not their place is the kitchen, they should go back to the kitchen, and now is not the right time for women. And I remember that moment very clearly, even today, that I was thinking, as a woman, as a journalist, as an Egyptian, if now is not the right time for women, then when? There will never be one. So I decided to go and meet some of the women who were in Tahrir Square, and I met 3 women. One of them is Sally Zohni, who we see here on the screen. She is a liberal young woman who used to work back then at the UN office in Egypt, and she wanted Egypt to grant more women rights and women empowerment. And she thought back then that 2011 is this turning point that will bring about real change for women. The second woman we talked to is Sarah Muhammad. Sarah back then was a 19-year-old member of the Islamist group, the Muslim Brotherhood. Here we see her after voting for the first time ever in her life. She told me back then that she voted for the group. And there was something very interesting about Sarah, because in this group, in this Islamist movement and group, women are not allowed to vote in the internal elections. Yet Sarah was dreaming of actually becoming the first woman prime minister of Egypt one day. And now we have like the third woman is Samira Ibrahim, who was one day camping out in Tahrir Square when the military police rounded a group of protesters and took them to detention in a nearby museum. They asked them, they asked the women there, who is married and who is not married, and they asked the non-married women to stand in a line. And they took them one by one, including Samira, to a room where a military doctor actually performed a virginity test on her to see if she was a virgin or not. And the implication there was, if an unmarried woman is not virgin, that implies that she's loose and she's not trustworthy. And for some, that was an attempt to show, or to show an image of those women who were camping out in the square, that they are loose and they are not trustworthy. And Samira became afterward, and we're talking about a period where Mubarak, the former president, was toppled, and it was a temporary rule by the military council. And Samira decided to take her case to the court, and she was deemed to be like the bravest woman in Egypt back then, because she actually went to the court and had a court case against the military council, which is like the most powerful organization in the whole country. And she became a symbol. You can see her image on a graffiti, on like there were campaigns under her name here, like she was like drawn on like different walls around the city, and it reads that you will not break us. And that was the symbol. And actually it was such a victory for her, because afterwards she actually won a case against the military council that it's not legal anymore to perform virginity tests for those who are detained. You can see her here in her victory. So you think that 2011 back then it summed up all those dreams of a new Egypt. At this time, this point of time, at this space, Tahrir Square, it summed up their dreams of like having their bodies, minds, and souls actually free, and it was a turning point that is never going back again. And there was a big hope for a real change for specifically for women. So 10 years on, we decided that we want to go back and speak to those women again and see what happened, what has changed in their lives after 10 years. And I'm not going to speak about politics, and I'm sure that you know, like the political scene has changed a lot in those years in Egypt. But I will speak about the women, the three women. So Sally, for example, the liberal woman who used to work for the UN, she refused to speak to us on camera this year in 2021. And she had different reasons, but one of them, she thinks it's very difficult for her to go back in time and actually reflect on what happened in Tahrir in 2011. And it's very difficult for her to think of like women's rights, where they were and where they are today. We have Sarah, she's now like 29-year-old, and she's no longer a Muslim Brotherhood member. She actually opposes them. And you can see her here in her self-exile in Washington, D.C., where I met her, with her 2-year-old son who's never been to Egypt and never met his family. And she thinks that she cannot go back to Egypt and visit because she might be targeted, as she thinks, because she and her husband still work as activists, and they work a lot on like freedom of speech and political prisoners issues. And we have Samira. Now this is how she looks. She never ceases to surprise me, actually, because she's still trying to take part in politics in Egypt, and she tried twice to run for parliament. Well, she failed. She never got it, but she is still trying to fight politically there in Egypt to this day. So when I think about those three women and how time made their bodies change, withdraw, or even keep fighting for something they believe in, I always think that Tahrir was that point of time that made everyone realize that this is a turning point, that we're never going back to what we were before 2011. And I think its ramifications are still unfolding to this day, and to me that square actually summed up a lot of the relationship between time, body, and even space. So I included a couple of links here because I don't want to I want to listen to you too as well, but I have 2 links here if anyone is interested to listen to the documentary we made in 2011. That's a radio documentary and it's in English. And for the Arabic speakers, if we have any here, the YouTube link is for the piece we did this year, and you can see more about the 3 women we met. And this is my Twitter handle. If anyone wants to get in touch, I will be delighted to.
Thank you so much. And actually, I already put the first link in the chat, but maybe you can add the second one because, yeah, to my understanding, there are some Arabic speakers here. So that would be great. Now we are going to continue to move to another medium and someone who's worked on this feminist issue as well, Alys Scott Hawkins, but from drawing, from animation. So it would be great to hear as well your own experience in relation to this topic.
Hello, I have chosen to write a response to some of the prompts that Shelley and Estrella provided, thinking about embodiment, thinking about the behind the scenes of my practice. So I'll start to read it. The many roles. I am an artist who works with animation and documentary, using drawing, storytelling, and sound as a way to make sense of the world, to lean in to what I find uncomfortable, to feel around it, to process it, to try and find ways to understand it and what it means. I am always thinking. To make time for this work, I have followed many paths. I've worked as a freelance animation director, producing short films for charities and for TV. I've worked as a senior lecturer, teaching and researching. At present, I juggle a job for an arts organisation, running a programme of support for visual artists, some hourly paid teaching, the occasional commission, and I squeeze my work as an artist around and in between parenting, housework, life admin. I'm always an artist, always a woman. I'm always a mother, always a wife. I'm sometimes a teacher and sometimes a listener and encourager, quite a lot of the time an administrator, an email reader and writer. I'm sometimes a camera person, I'm sometimes a producer, I'm often a director, sometimes an editor, sometimes an animator, often a writer. I'm sometimes the only person in all these roles, talking to myself. I'm sometimes a walker in the park as I try to fathom out how these activities fit together, as I try to separate out one from another and work out who I am. I'm sometimes dashing between roles and sometimes containing all the roles in my body at once. I'm sometimes on my bike, cycling from one role to another, from the school run to work and from work to the school run and then home, perhaps attending an online discussion while cooking the dinner. My artist body breathes and draws, connecting eye to hand to a mark on the paper, recording a moment mediated through my body. My artist body sits at a desk, typing words, applying for funding, pitching ideas, responding to an open call, up late at night after the kids are in bed, digging deep to find the energy to envision the work, write about the work, cost the work, schedule the work. To meet deadlines, my body runs on adrenaline and is prone to burnout. So sometimes my body is laid up in bed with no fuel left in the tank. The space. For the last year, mostly, I've been held tightly in my domestic space, both the refuge and a prison. Not only during COVID times, but long before that, the space in which I'm an artist is at home. I have in the past had a rented studio, but in recent years that hasn't been affordable. So what space I've had is a cramped box room shared with drying laundry and all the things that don't fit anywhere else. In the past year, it's been the living room, the desk in the living room, where my work is completely combined with my home life. No privacy and no alone time. But for the first time, perhaps this work is visible to my husband and my kids, who listen in to the panel discussion, join the film festival audience, and wave at the other participants in my online meeting. Arriving on screen unexpectedly, they leap about while gaming, switch on the TV, or hunt for lost keys. The time. Time for the work has become almost impossible. But then again, in the same moment, it's opened up. Schools closing meant no time on my own, but as an act of resistance to this attack on my existence as an artist, and to try and make sense of being trapped in this safest of places at home, I tried to capture time, using technology to produce animation when I could not. I started recording time-lapse. I could set up a camera in 5 minutes and I could return to it in 5 minutes the next day to watch back the footage. I'd made something, I recorded something, capturing something, finding some way to keep it and look at it in order to ask what it might mean. I recorded the days and nights as they passed, the sun and the moon, the shifting shadows over piles of school books on the kitchen table. On my park walks, I filmed empty benches and suburban heathland filled with Thursday night applause. I set up a wildlife camera in the garden, documented the night visitors: cat, cat, fox, cat, badger, badger, cat, deer, cat. I felt a strong desire to edit, to collect and stitch together, to make something new. I made a film from these fragments. The film is still unfinished.
Yes, thank you so much, Alys. That was lovely. We all had smiles on our faces the whole time, and I'm sure everyone else did as well. And before we open it up to audience questions, which I want to do pretty quickly, I just thought briefly, picking up on what Alys brought us to in the end, that question of time and space in the current moment and experience of the pandemic. If all the rest of you others want to just briefly touch on that question of time and space in this moment, and how it's affecting your thinking about time and space in your work, and dealing with that in the future as we kind of move forward through this strange time as well. Anyone would like to speak about that first? Any thoughts?
Okay, I'll go.
Thank you.
It's a very good question, and I think Alys really touched on that, and you can see all the smiles on our faces because we can, I think, relate to that. It's our everyday life right now. I think the current situation did, of course, influence our time and space. There is no longer a boundary between your time at work and your time at home. It's all the same, and you feel like the way your day is structured is not the same anymore. I mean, like, there's a big lack of structure. It goes like the flow is more like what you need to do, what task you need to do now and finish. And the space is the same. I think, in a way, I think we are invaded. Our space is invaded because it's no longer our personal space. It's also our professional space as well. But at the same time, I think it made it more intimate and relational with other people we speak to. So, for example, when I do an interview now, yes, we don't talk face to face, but then they see part of my house, I see part of their house, and the whole sitting is more comfortable. And I think that people tend to open up more in this comfortable space, rather than having a camera that can be intimidating for some people and have like a very studio or sitting that make people not very natural. So I think on this side, I really prefer working from home from this aspect, but also it's like when it comes to like the time, and it's a mess, if I may say.
Yeah, I think we can all relate to that messiness of this time. That's great, and thank you. Lindiwe or Leena?
Yeah, thanks, Shelley. Yeah, thank you so much, Alys. I think you summed it up for all of us. I was going to speak about, my embodied positionality as a mother as well. And I think, in terms of the homeschooling and all the difficulties that you've sort of summed up there of having our space invaded, it's been so difficult. But it's also, I think for a lot of us as mothers, we've already experienced those feelings of being kind of cut off from the world, raising small children. So what I've appreciated temporarily is this kind of simultaneity again, which I think, Hanan, you also are speaking about, where we can actually join in these conferences like this one. I always had this sort of fear of missing out, being a mother of a young child, and I couldn't get to the SA Film Festival at Birkbeck or to anything going on in central London. And so it was this constant feeling of lagging behind colleagues, not being up to date. Whereas now, at least on that front, that's not to deny all the many, difficulties and pain that people are going through the pandemic. But yeah, temporarily that has helped. And also what you were saying, Hanan, in terms of space, that intimacy, with Screen Worlds as well. It's been really exciting to connect with people all over Africa, all over the world. And despite also issues of digital inaccessibility and inequalities, it's been quite heartening to see that most people can still get hold of, a laptop and an internet connection so that we can actually chat. And then you think, why weren't we doing this before the pandemic? It's actually that easy. Why did we wait until we spent a lot of money, traveled to a festival or, somewhere in a very non-environmentally friendly way? So I do hope that will continue in our practice in the future.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, for me, I felt the clock got broken or something, because I don't know whether it's a day or whether it's a night, because you're constantly in front of the computer screens. And like I had a new film and it was selected in like some 10 festivals, and all the festivals got cancelled. The physical events like were converted into virtual events. So all this film festival screenings have become this computer screenings, virtual screenings, where you sit in front of the computer and you have this audience interacting with you. You don't see the faces. So I was kind of feeling, my space got very confined with the screen, because I'm also doing my master's in fine arts films in the York University, Toronto. So I've been running classes in Canada time, where it is all night in India. So I don't know when the sun rises or when the sun sets. Like, it's always in front of the computer. So your time, your space, your body, it's all now the screen. You feel like it's a lot of screen fatigue, and like this contact with the human bodies, the contact with the real time has diminished. And it's all the squares, and sometimes like I start seeing everything in squares. So yeah, that's been the thing. And yes, I've been making isolation films, but it's mostly Zoom dramas. Like you make dramas in Zoom. Like, yes, definitely you can bring the characters from France, from Toronto, and everywhere, everybody in the screen, but still it is all directed virtually. And definitely it is actually twisting your perceptions, how you see bodies, how you feel the time. All that is being twisted, but I want to really think this is a unique experience. Otherwise, you will be stressed. So that's the only way we can cope up with this new normal. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense to all of us. So that this new normal that we keep hoping will change more and more. But we do want to open it up to questions from the audience. So if anyone wants to put their virtual hand up or type something in the chat at any point, we'll give you a chance to do that. But while you're thinking of your question or something, I was just to pick up on that a little bit. There's a mix of good things about our current things that have been turned out to be good that we might not have thought, and then sort of things we want to get past and move on. And are there specific things about this time that you want to take forward? However we go forward, however long it takes to return to some kind of, new normal in the future. Just one or two things that maybe you think, I definitely want to take this with me, and I'm ready for that to stay behind. If any of you want to speak to that. And again, anybody in the audience who wants to ask questions, just raise your hand or pop something in the chat. Yeah, Alys, go ahead.
I was just going to make a quick response, which I think I touched on in what I wrote, which is I think my life has always involved multiple roles and a lot of dashing about, and something bodily that is positive from this time is stillness. And as Hanan said, it is kind of messy and everything's in the same place, but I think I want to hold on to some of the energy that I previously spent dashing about between my various roles.
Yeah, that makes good sense. A nice thought.
Would anyone else like to share some good practices or comfortable practices that you may want to keep?
Well, I definitely don't look forward to spending an hour in the morning commuting. That I don't miss at all. Like, if I can take this out, I think it will be much better, because now you start the day, and I'm not sure, Alys, if you felt the same while dashing between different roles. Like I used to start the day just rushing and running around because I need to catch the train, or that I have to run to the other train, etc. before I go and start like the meeting. And by the time you get to the office, you're already like tired and stressed. But now I have like a slower start to my day, and I find it much better because I'm calmer in the morning. I already had my coffee that I made myself, and then if I have like a phone call, or I'm fresh, like I didn't spend that time just on the commute. So I would definitely, if I can, I would take the commuting out, but I don't know how I will do it because I'll have to commute at some point.
I would agree with Hannah and Alys. I have slowed down a lot. Always I thought like, oh, something like I have to catch something. So I kept running and running and running, and I've been always barefoot. But now like I've just slowed down, and also it kind of dawned upon me that you can't be in control of everything, right? Like you have to face things that you never planned. So that, and also this uncertainty has made me kind of a zen into a level like, yes, I mean, let's take a day at a time. Like, yes, like, if we are alive today, great. Like, let's look for tomorrow. And this whole slowing down and reflection and self-reflection and accepting things and not controlling or not trying to make it happen like you want to make that happen and want it to happen. So all those things have, I think, changed. And I think I feel good about it, about that particular change.
Lindiwe, you were speaking about collaboration during this period, and it has coincided really with your research project. So I was wondering if there's something that you want to highlight about what's going on that may continue after the pandemic.
Thank you for that great question, Estrella. Yes, 6 months into our project, suddenly, the pandemic happens and all our plans had to be completely, we had to change the whole way we were thinking about making our films. But I'm really just proud of our team and our partners because, we've just sort of faced these obstacles together. It's been another exhilarating experience of what we can do collaboratively, thinking creatively. So a positive thing that's come out of that, with these big grants, it's often very difficult. The funding's very strict, but with force majeure in place now, we've actually been able to work much more with local film production companies in Africa compared to what we thought we would be able to do. So my team members I mentioned before, who are currently in Nigeria and in Ethiopia, are working with Sarams Media, production company in Nigeria, and Curat Pictures in Ethiopia. And that's just, that's been so exciting and given me faith that beyond this project, we can continue to work more transnationally like that, but in a more environmentally friendly way. We're having to do data transfer and footage transfer now back from there to Europe, where our creative producer Anna Sova is going to do the editing. She's Polish but is stuck in Spain, so we are it's been really exciting on that front. And also just to say, with our curated events, as much as I sort of miss that embodied viewing of films with people that I've written a lot about and watching films, being moved by them, crying together, laughing together, there have been benefits to moving our events online, where we've had people from all over the world joining in, not just academics, which is really important to me too, that we erode that boundary between academia and the non-academic world. And so hopefully that will continue as well.
Thank you very much. We have two people from the audience who would like to jump in. So we'll start with Gul and then Agnieszka. Thank you.
Hi. When Estrella wrote in the chat, would you like to jump in? I had to tidy my hair, tidy my room, and then turn on the camera. I had the headphones and I was also sorting my books actually as I was listening to you guys. I'll quickly share my screen if that's okay. Because what I put in the chat is about a film called Thomas in Love. I'm an architect and I write about cinema and architecture, and this film was one of my PhD films. I think it's this one. Yeah, it's really interesting because Toma is an agoraphobe. He is afraid to leave his house. Okay. Hold on. Do you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. It's just 1 minute, so I thought it should be appropriate. This is even before Skype and obviously before pandemic, made in 2000. And his whole life is through screens. And my worry is that once everything is sorted after the pandemic, hopefully this will happen, we will be a bit like Toma, not being happy to join the life outside. Okay, sorry, I should go to the beginning. There.
Actually, we cannot hear it, so I wonder if you pressed the when sharing your screen, you have to press sharing sound as well. So you have to
okay.
sharing and sharing again.
Hold on.
But you can also just put your link in the chat so that we can keep the reference.
Okay, let's do that. That's easier. I don't want to keep you, but I just want to say fascinating panel. I wonder if there's any man in the group, because I only see the initials, obviously, and all the panelists and people who join in are women, which is kind of nice, but you wonder. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. If you can stop sharing so that we can have again the screen with the speakers, that would be great. And yes, I know you were waiting to ask a question. Thank you so much. And then we have Hanan as well with us.
Yes. Yes. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for a fascinating panel. Can you hear me, Estrella?
Yeah. Yes, yes.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. Thank you. There are many things which kind of corresponded to what we just discussed in our panel. So I have a question, which I guess is a tricky, difficult question, and this is something that I always struggle with and will continue to struggle with, because I'm a white European and have been working in Zimbabwe and other places. So the question is, and you touched upon it, Lindiwe, in terms of acknowledging your whiteness, acknowledging your background, both just now even, but also in your writing and in your creative practice and in your curating. But I wanted to ask again, and I wonder if you could speak to it, the difficulties, also the challenges, and how you overcome the notion of kind of, you know, historical, painful legacies that we all have to deal with in terms of asymmetrical power relationships.
Thank you so much, Agnieszka. Such an important question. And again, you know, I'm not going to be able to do justice to it in the short amount of time we have here. So I'd be very grateful if you could see my past article that I refer to, because I go into a lot of this at length, and put myself in conversation there with the Black feminist and womanist thinkers who've really, you know, informed my thinking on this, and who've made me feel that I do still have a space to speak from, because, you know, sometimes one feels as a white person that, you know, should I speak? Is it my space to speak? But people like Samia Nerez and Bell Hooks and, you know, and Sara Ahmed, reading their work and saying that the labor of this work cannot continue to fall only on the shoulders of people of color, on Black people, on Black women in particular, has made me think I have to continue to confront this, as difficult as it is, as many mistakes as I might make, as I write about in the past article. We've got to be, you know, willing to self-critique, to make those mistakes, to be corrected, to be called out, but to just still have the courage to try and speak about them, to try to be, you know, as I know you and your work too in the previous panel were talking about this, being a white ally, thinking about what that means, and you know, also not denying our white privilege, but thinking about how we can use it productively, because it doesn't, you know, it doesn't help to deny that privilege either. So this is, you know, this is really kind of a lifetime's, you know, worth a lifetime's thinking and work. And yeah, I hope we can keep talking about it with one another as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Hanan, you want to respond to that? Or on previous point, I saw your hand raised just right now.
My hand was raised by a mistake. I have to say it's my first time to use the Teams app. But on that, I think on the difficulties and challenges that we all face, and I really like you pointed to, like the legacy we all and the baggage we all carry because where we come from or our experiences or what we're experiencing now, etc. I always find like the most difficult part about, for example, women in the region, in the Middle East, in the Arab world, is that they are perceived as victims. Okay, and they are subject to like a lot of violence, and they live in patriarchal societies. But for example, when I went to Saudi Arabia and I worked on a few stories there about women, I can tell you there was not a single Saudi woman I met there who actually fits into the profile of a victim. You know, like they're very well educated, they want change, they don't have the power to make the change, but they want it. And I think this is always difficult and challenging when you portray this story, when you tell that story, how you make that balance of telling their stories without making them look like a victim. Yeah, that's all. I mean, it's always, I don't have an answer. I would love someone to share that, but I always find it challenging, and you can only try.
Leena, you certainly want to say something about this. You were using the word survivors, and be very careful about language in your presentation, I noticed, and heroes.
Yeah, throughout my practice, I've been working with marginalized communities, the disadvantaged communities, and I keep facing questions that you're not a Dalit. I mean, in the caste system, you have, you know, forward caste and backward caste, most backward caste. Like it's a very pretty layered system of slavery in that sense. So the hegemony comes from top to bottom. But when I stand with fisherman community or refugee community or Dalit community, like I do locate myself from where I come from. Like I can speak English. I had the privilege of going to school, and I come from this this caste background. And I locate myself before locating the communities whom I always say my films and my writings are my show of solidarity with people whom I'm working with. So that's the place I want to be. And it's not that, like, you know, the power is definitely asymmetrical, but I'm not over powerful to like bring solutions to the problems of the communities or the issues of the communities, the historical fate of those communities. All those are like larger than my life experiences, but I'm always there when in the process of storytelling, I'm standing with them and I'm witnessing their truth. So that's all, that's the role I always want to, you know, play. And when you go outside with the stories, you are this Shudra woman from the third world, you know, meeting white people in the West and, you know, people from all the other cultures. So you're shifting roles of like having this little bit more privilege than the communities who you're working with. And then you're, you know, transforming the stories to the world where you're seen as, you know, a Black woman or a brown woman from a third world, remote South, global South. So it's been quite complicated, like because the language you use and the way you navigate through spaces, it's really complex. And I think this is eternal learning experience. And I'm really very happy to be an artist, because art has become an agency for me. a medium for me to navigate these identities, these spaces and histories and stories and, diversity. But it's really difficult because wherever you go, you're consistently asked questions, and those questions remain as questions, and I'm hoping to find at least half answers through the process. But till the world is not equal, this is going to be there. Because you have so many layers, and unfortunately it is you have up, down and middle and all these layers. There are so much of hierarchies. So as far as this is going to exist, I think as artists we will also be constantly negotiating it and redefining us. Yeah, that's what I feel. And about that earlier question about collaboration during the pandemic, it was a phenomenal experience. Other than pandemic, this wouldn't have happened. In the last fall, 16 of filmmakers from around the world, we came together and we made a narrative film, feature film on isolation. So I did a 5-minute film from India, and that was part of a 70-minute film, which was like exquisite cadaver film, where it was a phenomenal experience. And I think, unfortunately, I have to be thankful to pandemic. Otherwise, I wouldn't have met these many filmmakers and collaborated and looked at how isolation, how we really dealt with isolation from different cultural backgrounds. Yeah.
Thank you. We have to finish really and announce the winner, but there is a question from Haytham Mohammed. I know we've made you wait, so if you can quickly formulate it, if you are still around.
Hi, everyone. Do you see me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I just have a practical question for Hanan, and I watched your documentary this morning. Really well done. Fascinating work. I was in the square, and it reminded me of everything that was happening there. I was just running around with the camera. You had a really concise and really beautiful story. My question is basically for Arabic filmmakers, Arabic speakers filmmakers that are based in London or around the UK. Do you have any advice on internships or trainings that's offered by BBC or any other channels or organizations?
Yes, I know that there is a BBC apprenticeship scheme. I'm not sure if they opened it this year because of the pandemic. I would imagine they haven't, but if you go to the Google BBC Career Hub, and then you will find there like the vacancies of the jobs, and then just sign up, and it sends you a notification every time there is an opening for apprenticeship. And sometimes they do like a training scheme for a few months or a work experience. You can find that. Perfect. Good luck, and thank you so
very much. Thanks.
Estrella, you're on silent.
I was just going to let you speak though and say thank you so much to all of you for this fascinating panel. It's been wonderful listening to all of your experience and engaging work. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone. You've been fantastic. And I hope now that you will stick around for a little bit longer. Everyone will, because we're going to now, we give the BAF's Outstanding Achievement Award to Ama Sante. So I'm going to share my screen. If I can, just give me one second. Knew this was going to be trickier than planned, but if you give me one more second, try that again. Here we go.